Hello, Internet. I couldn't find the camera. Hello, Internet. And this is the last time I'm recording this video. I've recorded this so many times, it's not even funny anymore. I went out into the off-road place that I found, recorded that at least a couple times. I recorded here once before already, but I keep having microphone problems. My wireless mic obviously doesn't work, so I had the bright idea, why don't I just straight up stick the microphone to the camera and sit by the camera? So I would have made this video much sooner, but I've been struggling with this. This is the last time I'm recording it, and hopefully this video doesn't suck. I just had to complain that really quick. So this video is for those of you who are looking to buy your first motorcycle. Now maybe it's not your first one. This will hopefully still be useful advice, but that's what I'm keeping in mind when I'm telling you these things. If you're looking to buy your first motorcycle, I'm trying to point you in the right direction and tell you some things that you should know. I am not a professional, I'm not an expert. I think I'm just some guy, but I have been riding for 10 years and I've had many motorcycles, so I like to think that I have some things that can help, and that's the goal of this video. All right, so first section, let's talk about types of motorcycles. Now we can cut motorcycles into two types. There's street legal and non-street legal, but just for this video's sake and because it's probably all you care about, let's just talk about street legal motorcycles. There are many types of motorcycles. The most common is probably cruisers. Cruisers can be anything with handlebars that are below your shoulders to above your head. Typically cruisers have a relaxed seating position, and again, this is generally speaking, a cruiser is a motorcycle with an older aesthetic. Another very common type of style or a type of motorcycle are crotch rockets. Crotch rockets are motorcycles with aggressive seating positions where you're leaned forward at least a little bit, and they can be, very aggressive. Typically the styling of these is very sporty, very fast looking, but there are many, many types of motorcycles. Cruisers, crotch rockets, adventure bikes, touring bikes, supermotos. There's more. Mini bikes, oh, there's so many. Dirt bikes. These motorcycles are made to do different things. And between the different things that they can do, and they specialize or otherwise, there's room for preference, there's compromises in off-road, on-road abilities, whatnot. The point is, there are many different types to choose from. Choose whatever type that you like. We'll get into that in a bit. When looking at types of motorcycles, consider the different sizes. And I don't just mean physical size, although that is important because a different size motorcycle might fit you better than another. I'm talking specifically about cc's, that means cubic capacity, that's the engine size, and that's what motorcycle size means. It means the engine size. Again, generally speaking, smaller is slower, bigger is faster. Generally, I'm speaking very generally. The only consistent thing with the engine size is typically the weight and the price. So a small cc motorcycle will be cheaper and lighter, and therefore typically easier to ride and cheaper than a bigger one. Not always, but if you're buying in North America, the typical cc sizes that you'll see and should probably familiarize yourself with are 125, 300, 600, 1000, anything in between, above and below, generally. So 125, 300 would be considered a beginner level, 600 would be considered intermediate, and then 1000 is, well, not beginner. And I'll talk about that more in a bit, but consider the size. Size doesn't dictate fun. In fact, some sizes work better at certain things than other things. And the size alone does not dictate power, necessarily. It's very complicated. I have a Super Duke that's 1301 cc's, and it's about as fast as you imagine it to be. Inversely, you can have a cruiser with 1301, but because of how that engine is made and how the power is used, that might be really easy and slow to ride. And if you want to ride off-road and you want to go fast off-road, good luck having fun going fast on something that's like a 900. It's too heavy, and you'll have more fun and be lighter and more nimble on a smaller bike. The point is, do not think that a small bike is bad. There's a reason that we still make and sell them. Everything has its use. Okay, so the next section is choosing your motorcycle. So in choosing a motorcycle, consider the style. What do you like the look of? The good news is there's no wrong answer, and there are so many different types of motorcycles. If you want to rock a Honda Grom all day, every day, go for it. Do whatever you want. That's the good thing about it. So if you think cruisers are cool and you like wearing all leathers, whatever, that matches your style, great. If you like wearing a tank top, don't ride a motorcycle. I'm kidding. No, seriously, there's no wrong answer.
So sad.
look around, look online, try to see what exists. Look at the types of motorcycles I mentioned, adventure bikes, and that's more use. That's the next part. When choosing a motorcycle, consider the use. Are you going to ride this thing every day, every other day, every week? Are you going to commute on this thing? Are you going to be going long distances? What's your climate like? Do you live in a place where it rains often? Is it humid all the time? Is it hot all the time? Do you want to go off-road? These things matter because different motorcycles are made to do different things, and considering on what your use is, that should guide you on what kind of bike you're going to get. And probably the most important thing to consider when choosing your motorcycle is your budget. Obviously, that matters. But I want to dissuade you from a false idea that you probably have. If you have $5,000 to buy a motorcycle, you do not have $5,000 to buy a motorcycle. You have $5,000 to buy a motorcycle, license, register, and insure it, put mods on it if you want to, and most importantly, buy gear. You really can't have one of these things without the other, and I'm going to advise that you buy the gear first for the reasons of style and because aside from the motorcycle itself, it's the most important thing. Realize that your budget has to allot room for all these several things. Okay, so buying a motorcycle. Let's once again split into two sections. You can have new motorcycles and used motorcycles. Briefly, the pros and cons. Some of them are, if you're buying new, it's convenient and you know exactly what you're getting. You know it's a brand new motorcycle and there's nothing wrong with it, and it can be like right there in a dealership. You can have it ordered in, done. It's really easy, and I don't have much advice for buying a new one. The main pro of buying used is it is the most cost effective. I think you can understand that. If you buy a motorcycle for $10,000, brand new, and you put $2,000 worth of mods on it, and you put no miles on it, and then you sell it, you know how much money you're going to make selling it? Not 12, probably not even 10. That's just the nature of it. So if you want to buy and get the most for your money, buy used. And so moving forward, let's just assume you're buying used. So if you're buying used, some markets, you might try our Craigslist, obviously. Craigslist is good. You might be able to do Facebook Marketplace. I assume that works like Craigslist, but I can't speak to it because I don't have Facebook. If you're buying nationally, you can use a website called Search Tempest, which basically looks at Craigslist listings across the country, and that's useful. And also, if you're buying nationally, a good website is Cycle Trader. It's like Auto Trader, but for motorcycles, basically. But if this is your first motorcycle, I'll skip to something in the end. I advise that you buy locally, but we'll get to that. So in buying a motorcycle, you have to find a way to determine the value. And the most obvious thing is the physical condition. Has it been laid over? Are the fork seals leaking? Do the tires need to be replaced? These things, probably more than anything else, determine the motorcycle's value. But on paper, probably the most determinant factor is the mileage. And something I want to say about mileage on motorcycles, motorcycle engines don't or are not expected to last as long as cars. I think a good rule is a 3-to-1 ratio. 4-to-1, 5-to-1, it depends. Generally, if I had to pick one ratio, 3-to-1 seems to work the most often. So if you see a motorcycle with 33,000 miles, in your head you should go, that's a car with 100,000 miles. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about the use of longevity of a motorcycle. 3-to-1. Motorcycles don't go as long. Ownership is important. The fewer the owners, the better. If it's a one-owner vehicle, great. That's the best used vehicle you could probably hope for as far as ownership goes. The reason for that is the fewer hands it changes, the less opportunities it has to get damaged or mistreated or paperwork get lost, whatever. Fewer owners is closer to new, essentially. And also very important, considering the value, because it does matter, is the title status. You want a clean title. Clean title means that the person who's selling it to you has their name on the document and actually legally owns the vehicle that they're selling you. You'd be surprised how many people sell motorcycles or vehicles that just aren't theirs. And you really want to avoid that because you do not want the worst thing that ever happened. The worst thing you think is having a motorcycle in your garage that's broken and you can't drive it. But the worst thing is having a motorcycle in your garage that's perfectly fine and you paid for and you own it, but you can't drive it because it's not legally yours. That's the worst. And being stuck with paperwork and avoid that. Clean title only. If you see salvage title and it's your first motorcycle, do not bother. So here's some buying practices I advise. So you're buying a motorcycle. One thing to do is on the title, when you're signing it and the seller is signing it, please make it a habit to have the buyer, you're the buyer, have the seller write their name on the title exactly as it appears on the title. He might sign it D. Bob, but on the title it says Billy D. Bob. That's a problem, because the DMV will probably go, oh, well, I guess the real seller didn't sign it, and now this isn't your motorcycle. I don't even want to talk about how frustrating that is. Good practice, when you're looking at the title, and if it says Billy D. Bob, please just inform him, hey, can you please sign your name exactly like it's already there on the title? To save you a lot of headache. Good practice. When you're paying, cashier's check is best. You can ask your bank what a cashier's check is. A cashier's check is basically the bank saying, we guarantee that we have the money and we're holding it for this person. So that's safest for both parties. Of course, you can use cash, but I'd have to advise against cash if you're, one, holding a whole bunch of cash, and or two, going a long distance because of obvious reasons like being robbed, and less obvious reasons like being robbed by the police with something called civil forfeiture. Moral of the story is, cash is okay if you're not going too far, not carrying too much, but cashier's check or cash. Regardless of how you pay, good practice to get bill of sale. Bill of sale is really simple. It's just a piece of paper that says, this is who we are and this is what we did. Billy D. Bob and Sam Jackson's the first thing I thought of. I gave him this much money, he gave me this motorcycle. Some states require you to have a bill of sale, but even if it doesn't, really easy, simple, what do you call it, insurance? Safety for both of you. You should each have a copy. And lastly, a little tip, whenever you're buying, selling, good practice, get a picture of each other's driver's licenses. This is in case one of you screws the other, it can help you. So for example, you get home from buying a motorcycle, it turns out, oh no, he sold me a cardboard cutout of a motorcycle. And you go to the police, hey, this guy robbed me. And they go, okay, who robbed you? I met him on Craigslist and I sent him an email. Like, if you have a picture of the driver's license, at the very least this says, this is a person I came into contact with, this is what he looks like, where he lives, and what his name is. Really easy, nice little safety practice to include when you're buying something. If you asked me in person, and I think most people who own a motorcycle would agree, in fact I haven't met someone who disagrees, so generally speaking, this is what I would advise and everybody would advise. If you're buying your first motorcycle, buy a small motorcycle, buy used, and buy locally. Buy small because some people think they have to buy a big one. Well, here's the thing. You can buy a big one whenever you want. The only difference a big or a new, more expensive motorcycle is the only difference it's gonna make is when you lay down your first motorcycle, and you will, or crash it, the only difference it's gonna make is it means your crash is gonna be faster and more expensive. When you buy a small motorcycle, you are not married to it. You don't have to be stuck with it. Get a motorcycle that you can drop and not cry. Get a small used one, and locally, because it's convenient and it's much easier to deal with than traveling to do that stuff. Make it easy on yourself. This first motorcycle, just remember, it's not your only one. If you don't want it to be, you can ride this thing for like 6 months, and after you've gotten comfortable with it and you feel like super confident in yourself and your riding abilities, and now you have a better idea of what you want, time for a new motorcycle or a different one, a new used motorcycle. You can always move around. So don't think that this one motorcycle is it. Your best, safest, logical bet is to get a smaller one that is lighter, easier to ride, not too powerful. Just start with that. But how do I ride the motorcycle? What do I do with the motorcycle when I buy it? How do I register it? How do I learn to ride? How do I get my license? Those are questions for the next video. So if this microphone didn't suck too much, that's what the next video is going to be about. So if you have questions about what to do once you've bought your motorcycle, go ahead and write them in the comments. I will consider them when I write my notes for the next one. In the meantime, I really hope that this video, one, didn't suck, and two, that it helped you in some way. Okay, I'm done. Well, I mean, I'm not done. I'm going to sit here and wait for a motorcycle. So thanks for watching. Hope it helped. Be good, have fun. General salutations. I really suck at saying goodbye, and that's not going to change. So goodbye.